Lindsay Garcia has been selling homes in Fort Lauderdale for 12 years. She's never seen buyers this spooked. They're not just hesitant, she told Redfin last week, standing in an empty $650,000 listing that's been sitting for 47 days. They're doing the math and walking away. The math she's talking about just became national news. Fort Lauderdale now leads the entire United States in buyer retreat. Pending home sales crashed 15.2% year over year. Think about that number. While the rest of America saw sales climb 4.7%, Fort Lauderdale buyers vanished at 3 times the rate of the 2008 collapse. But here's what should terrify every Florida homeowner. Fort Lauderdale isn't even the worst story. Picture this data hitting your screen at 9 a.m. on a Tuesday. You're a real estate analyst at Redfin, coffee still warm, expecting to see the usual market fluctuations. Instead, you're staring at something unprecedented. The 5 metros with the biggest buyer exodus in America, all in Florida, every single one. Tampa, down 14.7%. Orlando, down 10.8%. Jacksonville and Miami, both hemorrhaging buyers faster than any recession on record. These aren't dying Rust Belt cities or overbuilt desert towns. These are the places Americans spent 3 years fighting to buy into. The same markets that saw bidding wars over swampland in 2021. Garcia remembers those days. I had buyers offering $100,000 over asking, waiving inspections, writing love letters to sellers. She pauses, looking at her phone where 3 showings just canceled. Now I have software engineers making $150,000 who can't qualify for a starter home. The question nobody's asking yet, but everyone should be, is this: how did America's most desired state become mathematically impossible for the very buyers who built its boom? Because what's happening in Florida right now isn't just a market correction. It's the collision of 3 forces that nobody saw coming together, creating a new reality where paradise comes with a price tag that doesn't compute. And Fort Lauderdale, that's just where the story begins. The numbers Redfin released paint a picture so stark, even veteran analysts did double takes. Miami's pending sales plummeted 14%, not from some artificial peak, but from normal market conditions just 12 months ago. West Palm Beach dropped 13.8%. These aren't subtle adjustments. These are buyers fleeing markets they once desperately wanted to enter. But the real shock comes when you zoom out. While Florida bleeds buyers, the rest of America is actually gaining them. Phoenix up 8.2%, Austin up 6.1%. Even expensive California markets like San Diego saw increases. It's not that Americans stopped buying homes, they stopped buying homes in Florida. The West Coast tells an even darker story. Port-Sarasota just earned a distinction no market wants. 48% of all listings are now cutting their prices, nearly half. In Cape Coral, the average home now sits on the market 31 days longer than last year, the largest jump in the entire nation. These were supposed to be Florida's affordable alternatives, the places middle-class families could still chase their sunshine dreams. I've had 3 listings expire this month, says Marcus Chen, a Cape Coral agent watching his pipeline evaporate. Same houses that would have had 10 offers in 2022. Now I can't get anyone through the door. The pattern repeats across the state like a financial virus. Deltona Daytona Beach, pending sales down 8.9%. Lakeland, once called Florida's last affordable paradise, down 7.8%. Even Jacksonville, the steady eddy of Florida markets, dropped 9.5%. These aren't luxury markets correcting from speculation. These are regular towns where teachers and firefighters used to buy homes. What makes this exodus unprecedented is its uniformity. During the 2008 crash, different Florida markets fell at different rates. Some held steady, while others collapsed. But Redfin's data shows something new. Simultaneous buyer retreat across every major metro, from the Panhandle to the Keys. The timing couldn't be worse. Florida added 365,000 new residents last year, all needing homes. Builders kept building, assuming the demand would never end. Now there's a growing canyon between the homes available and the buyers who can afford them. In Northport alone, there are 2,400 homes for sale, but only 127 went under contract last month. Here's what keeps economists awake. Markets don't just stop functioning. When half your sellers are cutting prices and buyers still won't bite, something fundamental has broken. The old rules, son, no state tax, endless appreciation, aren't enough anymore. The question morphing from whisper to scream: what happens when an entire state becomes priced out of its own dream? Because behind every statistic in Redfin's report is a family recalculating whether Florida makes sense anymore. And increasingly, the answer is no. Lakeland tells the story nobody wants to hear. Sarah Mitchell bought her 4-bedroom colonial in March 2022, right at the peak. $385,000 for what seemed like a steal. New construction homes nearby were pushing $450,000. Her husband's job at Publix headquarters made Lakeland perfect. Central location, growing downtown, still affordable compared to Tampa. 20 months later, she's dropping the price for the third time. Now asking $359,000, less than she paid. The identical house 3 doors down, a builder's offering it brand new for $342,000 with a 5.9% interest rate buy down and $10,000 in closing costs. Sarah can't compete with that math. We did everything right, she says, voice catching. 20% down, fixed rate, bought within our means, but now we're trapped. Her husband got a job offer in North Carolina. They can't take it. Selling means bringing $40,000 to closing just to pay off their mortgage. The numbers tell Lakeland's transformation in brutal clarity. Home prices surged 40% during the pandemic, faster than Miami, faster than Orlando. Inventory sat at historic lows. Buyers waived inspections, offered cash over asking. The American dream seemed alive and thriving in this city of lakes halfway between coasts. Then the music stopped. Inventory spiked 18% in 6 months. 1 in 5 listings shows a price cut, that red reduced banner becoming Lakeland's new signature. The median days on market stretched from 22 to 38. But here's the detail that explains everything. New construction permits increased 47% year over year. Builders kept building through the buyer exodus. Now they're sitting on inventory. They must move. Unlike Sarah, they have weapons. Lenders offering 4.99% rates when market rates hit 7.5%. D.R. Horton throws in upgraded appliances, covered closing costs, even free HOA fees for a year. Individual sellers watch helplessly as builders create a parallel market they can't access. Jacksonville amplifies this builder versus seller war. Drive down any major corridor and count the now selling banners. Builders completed 8,400 new homes this year. This was a 23% increase from 2022. Meanwhile, existing home sales dropped 19%. The math is catastrophic. More supply hitting fewer buyers, with builders holding every advantage. Marcus Williams listed his Jacksonville ranch home in August. 3 months, 2 price cuts, 1 offer that fell through when the buyer saw new construction prices. The builder half a mile away is selling my exact square footage for $20,000 less than my mortgage balance, he says, and they're throwing in a refrigerator. This isn't just market dynamics, it's human wreckage. The Lakeland Facebook groups tell the story in desperate posts. Anyone know a realtor who can actually sell? How much under asking should we price? Thinking about renting it out instead? Any property managers? But rental math doesn't work either. The same inventory glut-crushing sales is flooding rental markets. Lakeland rents dropped 3.2% year over year. Landlords who bought at peak prices face monthly losses, hoping appreciation saves them. Hope isn't a business model. The builder advantage extends beyond price. They're creating buyer psychology individual sellers can't match. New means no repairs, no surprises, warranties on everything. In uncertain times, buyers crave certainty. But even builders can't solve the equation that's really breaking Florida's housing market, because the price on the listing? That's just where the nightmare begins. Tom Rodriguez thought he'd done the math. The Fort Lauderdale condo was listed at $425,000. With 10% down and a 7.2% rate, his mortgage would be $2,750. Tight, but doable on his $95,000 salary. Then his insurance agent called back with the quote, "When she said $11,400 a year, I asked her to repeat it. I thought I'd misheard." He hadn't. Florida homeowners insurance premiums exploded 75% between 2021 and 2025, while the rest of America saw single-digit increases. The state average now sits at $8,292 annually, up 18% just from last year. In coastal areas like Fort Lauderdale, try $12,000 to $15,000 for a modest home. Here's what that means in real money. That $2,750 mortgage payment, add $950 for insurance. But wait, the Condo Association just announced a special assessment for concrete repairs, another $400 monthly for 3 years, plus the regular HOA fee jumped from $350 to $475 because their insurance tripled too. Final monthly cost, $4,575 for a one-bedroom condo. The mortgage is barely half the payment, Rodriguez says, closing his laptop after withdrawing his offer. Nobody talks about that when they show you listings. The insurance spiral started with Hurricane Ian but metastasized into something worse. 8 major insurers fled Florida entirely. The remaining companies? They're charging whatever keeps them profitable in a state where a single storm can trigger billions in claims. Citizens Property Insurance, the state-backed insurer of last resort, now covers 1.3 million policies. Their rates up 14% this year alone, with another 13% approved for next year. But insurance is just the first hidden tax. HOA and condo fees across Florida jumped 40% since 2021. In Miami, the average condo fee hits $700 monthly. That's $8,400 a year before you've paid a cent toward your actual home. Jennifer Park learned this lesson brutally. She bought a Boca Raton townhouse in 2022, budgeting carefully for the $3,200 mortgage. The HOA fee was $275, reasonable for pool maintenance and landscaping. Then came the letter. New insurance requirements, deferred maintenance. Suddenly, she's paying $485 monthly, with another increased vote scheduled for January. They tell you about property taxes going up, Park says. Nobody mentions your HOA can double overnight. The compounding effect breaks buying math across Florida. Take that typical Fort Lauderdale home, $650,000 purchase price. In 2021, your monthly cost looked like this: $2,400 mortgage, $300 insurance, $250 HOA. Total, $2,950. Today, $3,600 mortgage at higher rates, $1,000 insurance, $400 HOA. Total, $5,000, 70% higher monthly cost. If you're planning to buy anywhere in Florida, or if you're trying to sell to someone who is, what comes next changes everything about how you should think about this market. The insurance death spiral feeds itself. As premiums spike, buyers vanish. As buyers vanish, prices must fall. But falling prices mean underwater mortgages, which means owners can't sell even if they can't afford the insurance anymore. It's a trap with no clear exit. Redfin's data suddenly makes perfect sense. It's not that buyers don't want Florida. It's that Florida's hidden costs transform the American dream into a financial nightmare. The paradise tax finally exceeded what paradise is worth, and we haven't even talked about what happens when the next hurricane hits. The equation rewriting Florida's future isn't complicated. It's just cruel. Take any home price, add the true monthly cost, divide by median income. The result, a number that shouldn't exist in America. Lisa Thompson runs the calculations obsessively from her Denver apartment. She's been planning her Florida move for 3 years, tracking every market, every neighborhood. Sarasota tops her spreadsheet, the beaches, the arts district, the dream she's pictured since visiting her grandmother there as a kid. I check Zillow every morning, she admits. The houses are still there, prices even dropped a little. But when I run the full numbers, she pulls up her spreadsheet. A $500,000 Sarasota home requires $8,200 monthly all in. Her salary, $110,000. After taxes, she'd have $900 left for food, gas, everything else. She's not alone. Google search data reveals the heartbreak. Sarasota homes searches remain at all-time highs. Cape Coral real estate queries doubled since 2020. Americans haven't stopped dreaming about Florida. They've just stopped being able to afford the dream. The disconnect creates a peculiar market psychology. Sellers see the search traffic, the Florida population growth, the sunshine tax they've always commanded. They're pricing for the buyers they remember, the work-from-home crowd with California equity, the retirees cashing out up north. Those buyers still exist. They're just doing different math now. Every showing starts the same way, says Sarasota agent Michelle Chen. They love the house, love the location, then I hand them the insurance estimate. Watch their faces change. It's like telling someone their dream costs double at checkout. The new Florida equation hits first-time buyers hard. No equity cushion, no cash reserves for surprise assessments, just raw income versus total cost. FHA loans require 3.5% down, making that $500,000 house accessible with $17,500. Sounds achievable. Until you add $1,200 monthly insurance, $500 HOA fees, and realize you need $15,000 annual income just for the extras. But here's what the data whispers about Florida's future. The coast is cooling faster than anywhere in America. Not because it's less desirable, because desire means nothing when math says no. If you've been tracking these Florida markets yourself, you need the complete picture. The patterns I'm seeing across all 40 major Florida towns, both the 20, where buyers should absolutely avoid right now, and the 20 where opportunities still exist. That full analysis lives in the Florida buy and avoid list for 2026. Link is https://floridapulse.gumroad.com/l/ebook. It's the comprehensive breakdown of every factor we're discussing here, town by town, with the specific numbers that matter for your situation. But don't leave yet, because what comes next explains why some Florida dreams are just deferred, not dead. Cape Coral embodies the new reality perfectly. Young families still search affordable Florida coastal and find Cape Coral's canals, boat access, promise of paradise. They're comparing $400,000 Cape Coral homes to $800,000 California equivalents. On paper, it's still a bargain. On a monthly payment basis, the gap vanished. The Florida equation isn't just changing who can buy, it's changing what Florida means. For 3 generations, Florida meant escape. From winter, from taxes, from expensive coastal cities. Now it means calculation, compromise, accepting that paradise comes with a price that compounds annually. Which brings us back to Lindsay Garcia's buyers and a question that will define Florida's future. Garcia's skittish buyers aren't confused about the market. They're not waiting for rates to drop or prices to stabilize. They've done the math over and over late at night, plugging different scenarios into mortgage calculators, hoping for different results. They're certain about one thing: the Florida they dreamed of buying into no longer exists at their income level. Last week, I had a couple, both teachers, Garcia says, pulling up their file. Combined income, $120,000. Saved for 5 years. They qualified for $450,000. She pauses. You know what $450,000 buys in Fort Lauderdale now? A 2-bedroom condo with $800 monthly HOA fees and a special assessment coming. They're moving to North Carolina instead. This is the revelation hiding in Redfin's data. Those massive buyer retreats across every Florida metro, they're not temporary market jitters. They're the mathematical exodus of an entire economic class, the teachers, nurses, firefighters, and young professionals who once formed Florida's foundation. What happens to paradise when only the wealthy can afford it? California already ran this experiment. The results reshape everything. In Palo Alto, median home prices hit $3.5 million. The city now buses in teachers from 2 hours away because none can afford to live there. Restaurants close at 8 p.m. No workers can pay rent anywhere nearby. The city council meets monthly to discuss the missing middle crisis. Too late. Florida's racing toward the same cliff, just faster. When a Fort Myers firefighter can't afford Fort Myers, when a Miami teacher can't buy within 50 miles of their school, when the very people who make paradise function get priced out, what's left isn't paradise. It's a hollow resort for the wealthy, serviced by workers who commute from increasingly distant edges. The question haunting Florida's future: is this cooling temporary or permanent transformation? Here's what the optimists miss. Even if rates drop to 5%, even if insurance stabilizes, the psychological damage is done. A generation of buyers just learned that Florida can become unaffordable overnight. That lesson doesn't fade when conditions improve. But the deeper truth, conditions aren't improving. Climate change means insurance will only climb. Aging infrastructure means assessments will only increase. The new Florida equation isn't a phase, it's physics. Which raises the question every potential Florida buyer should ask themselves, what's your number? Not the price you can afford today, but the monthly payment you can sustain when insurance doubles again, when the next assessment hits, when paradise extracts its ever-growing tax. Because Garcia's buyers already know their answer, they ran the numbers, faced the truth, and walked away. Not from the Florida dream, but from the fiction that dreams don't have price tags. If you're wrestling with this same equation, share your story below. What's your Florida number, the monthly payment where paradise stops making sense? And if you're ready to join the growing community of people thinking differently about where and how to build their future, subscribe now. Not to support this channel, but to be part of the conversation reshaping how Americans think about home. The irony cuts deep. Florida spent decades selling itself as escape from unaffordable places. Now it's become what people need to escape from. Lindsay Garcia's empty listing tells that story in silence, a $650,000 monument to the moment math murdered the American dream, at least in the Sunshine State. But here's what the doomsayers miss. Florida's not dying, it's transforming. The state that once welcomed everyone with a steady job and a dream is becoming something else. Not better or worse, just different. Understanding that transformation, knowing which communities will thrive and which will hollow out, that's the difference between buying into the next California or the next Detroit. The data already shows the split forming. While coastal metros hemorrhage middle-class buyers, certain inland communities are quietly building sustainable futures. Places where the math still works, where insurance stays rational, where paradise doesn't require a trust fund. Finding them requires looking past the headlines to the fundamentals that actually predict market health 5 years out.